Now, turning to other news, the London Telegraph reports on the mystery virus that kills thousands of lambs. Thousands of lambs have been killed by a new virus threatening the survival of many British farms. It's also affecting the mainland in Europe. It's also affecting cattle. And so far, they've got 74 farms in the southern and eastern England hit by the mystery virus. The National Farmers Union has called it a potential catastrophe and warned farmers to be vigilant, saying this is a ticking time bomb. Alistair McIntosh of the NFU said, "We don't yet know the extent of the disease. We only will find out the damage when sheep and cows give birth. Then it's too late." So these are aborted fetuses. These are miscarriages. These are stillborns. These are heavily deformed animals that, although they're alive when they're born, can't survive because the arms and legs are twisted. And as they mentioned here, some farms on the mainland continent of Europe are losing up to half of their lambs, and farms in Britain are so far losing some 20%. But will they ever look at the real causes? Will they look at the supply chains, the factory farming, the government policies that perhaps make these kind of new mystery diseases possible? Of course, we don't know at this point, but this brings up directly a report that Jeffrey Smith, the premier GMO expert, brought up with Alex last week when they did an interview, not only talking about new confirmations and new evidence of how the extent to which GMOs are massively damaging the internal organs, the gut flora, and triggering sterility and infertility. You've also got the rise of a new super virus never before seen in science. They say it acts like a fungus. They don't know what it is. It can only be seen under an electron microscope, and yet it's getting into livestock and triggering abortions at a 24-hour time period. No other causes for it, and suddenly livestock are having miscarriages and all the other stuff we mentioned. Is there a connection? We don't know, but let's play that clip now from Jeffrey Smith because it's just bombshell.
But I wanted to talk about a new way, one that some of your listeners might be familiar with. There was a study, a series of analyses done on aborted fetal tissue of livestock where the farmer was beside himself. There was such high rate of abortions, spontaneous abortions. And on the aborted fetal tissue was a new organism only visible with an electron microscope. And they figured out where is this stuff coming from? So they did analysis of the feed. And when the feed was treated with Roundup, either it was Roundup Ready crops or products that had Roundup sprayed, there were high concentrations of this organism and high concentrations on diseased plants that are known to be getting disease because of Roundup.
What is it?
They took this organism and they exposed it to a pregnant chicken. It killed the fetus in 24 to 48 hours. Now, this organism has never been discovered before. It's completely new to science. It's the size of a virus. It operates, it looks like a fungus, and it appears to be everywhere, but in high concentrations around diseased plants and infertile animals and animals that have spontaneous abortions. So a letter was written by a senior researcher, by a professor emeritus, in fact, Professor Dr. Don Huber, who had decades of study and was an expert at Roundup effects. He was also on a military group that evaluates the threats of outbreak of disease, both natural and man-made. And in his letter to Secretary Vilsack of the USDA, he said, this is an emergency. He pointed out that there is widespread infertility among animals, that there might be a human link, of course, and that Vilsack should not approve Roundup Ready alfalfa because that would only increase the exposure of the population to Roundup at a time when we need to put money now into investigating whether this organism is causing the problem and linked to Roundup or GMOs. He sent that letter on January 17th, privately to Secretary Vilsack. It was leaked onto the internet, so that's why I can talk about it. He was finally called weeks later by someone from the USDA. He gave them the names of the researchers, and the researchers have not yet been contacted by the USDA, and that was over a year ago.
Let me stop you.